In Pensacola, there are two iconic historical photographs that immediately bring forth fond memories of yesteryear. The queen of them all is the prestigious San Carlos Hotel at Garden and Palafox Street. A close runner-up is what Pensacolians just refer to as the milk bottle. It was owned and operated by the Pensacola Dairy Company, but no one ever called it that. But to the business community, it was a lot more than the legendary milkshakes and teen burgers. The story of the milk bottle begins with the Bear family in Bryansk, Russia, where Moses Aaron Bear was born in 1857. He would meet and marry Rachel Landau from Poland in 1880. She would bear him 3 sons and 2 daughters. After their marriage, they migrated to Ostrov, Russia, where her sons Benjamin and Nathan were born. However, by the 1880s, anti-Jewish sentiment began to rise in Russia, and many were restricted to areas such as eastern Poland and the Ukraine. And it was in Poland where Moses met Rachel. As conditions worsened, their son Benjamin Bennie chose to immigrate to America. He boarded the SS Breslau in Prussia and arrived in New York in November 1904. To support himself, he began selling umbrellas throughout the South. In the meantime, his younger brother Nathan caught the immigration fever and followed Bennie to America in 1906. But Nathan chose to remain in New York and go to work for a dairy. While Nathan stayed put, Bennie continued to work his circuit, where in 1910 he rented a house at 528 West Church Street in Jacksonville, Florida. However, a traveling salesman had to keep moving to make any money. As he traveled west, he came upon the quiet coastal town of Pensacola in 1911 and fell in love with it. He wrote to Nathan of its beauty and charm, as well as its business opportunities. Given Nathan's newfound experience in the dairy business, Bennie persuaded him to head to Pensacola and help him open a dairy of their own. When they first began, Nathan was the one who had to deliver the milk on a bicycle while Bennie took care of things at the shop. Before long, they were able to afford a horse and wagon, which gave them the ability to deliver a greater amount in a shorter time. But the brothers had to have a steady supply of milk from the local farmers to stay in business. To ensure a steady flow, they purchased their own dairy farm in Ensley in 1912. This farm would produce for the 2 brothers late into the 1930s, but as their business grew, so did their need for better transportation. So around 1915, they were able to purchase their first automotive truck. During this period, they were operating out of 24 West Romanus Street, but in 1913 they moved their plant to 15 West Garden Street. 2 years later, they moved again to Garden and Balin Streets, to the first floor of the Manhattan Hotel. It was here they bought the first pasteurizing machine in Pensacola. Then in 1918, they moved their business yet again into the San Carlos Hotel building. And 2 years later, the brothers switched to another part of the building, where the hotel's grill was eventually located. During these early years of instability, the brothers concentrated mainly on milk, with butter and eggs as an additional commodity. Much of this was because refrigeration was not a common appliance in the early homes of Pensacola. In fact, less than 300 gallons were consumed daily as compared to later years. With business now booming, the boys were able to talk their parents into coming to America. By 1920, over 2 million Jews had already fled Russia because of the intense anti-Semitism and poverty, with many of them coming to the United States. His parents were 2 of those that came over that year. Their father, Moses, was a cigar maker and wine merchant by trade, but here he joined the dairy business with his 2 sons. His youngest son Joseph even opened a dairy and ice cream shop in Mobile, Alabama as well. In 1923, Bennie began negotiations with Claus Frisk of Robertsdale, whose production and quality of butter was much more favored in Pensacola. Therefore, he agreed to begin importing Frisk's butter and sweet cream by truck twice a week. He also decided to build his own creamery here. In August of 1924, the Pensacola Dairy Company moved again, this time to 21 North Palafox Street. The new plant was modernized with complete pasteurization and processing equipment, one of the first of its kind in Pensacola. Following the plant's 1924 move, local businessmen began sending their congratulations for the brothers' foresight and modernization of this essential commodity. To advertise their new plant, the Bear brothers conducted an open house on Saturday, September 20, 1924. Thousands of citizens turned out for the event. Awaiting them were 15,000 bottles of sweet milk, buttermilk, and chocolate milk, along with 200 pounds of cottage cheese and crackers. Thousands of cups of coffee were provided for their guests, while special bargains were offered, resulting in 1,000 dozen eggs and 1,200 pounds of butter sold to the eager public. Then the ever-expanding Bear brothers purchased the creamery in Robertsdale, Alabama in February 1926, which included an ice cream factory, creamery, and an ice plant. The brothers modernized their new Robertsdale creamery, bringing it up to their already high standards as they sought out the local dairy farmers to increase their market. A cold storage plant was also on the drawing board, plus the machinery to increase their daily capacity to 20 tons. A fleet of trucks were added for transportation, while Bennie made plans to move to Robertsdale to oversee the improvements. The dairy pioneer Claus Frisk was to remain as manager of the new Alabama venture. Then came conflict when in March 1926, the San Carlos Hotel made plans to expand their hotel's guest capacity to 500 rooms at a cost of $1 million. However, this created a problem with the Pensacola Dairy Company, who occupied the building at 21 North Palafox Street. Allegations were made that the Bear brothers were trying to extort money from William B. Harbison of the San Carlos Hotel in exchange for vacating their lease agreement at their new dairy plant. The hotel leased the property to the brothers, and apparently wanted them to vacate the premises prematurely. Finally, by March 1926, the allegations were set aside by both parties, and agreements were made for the Pensacola Dairy to move to another location. By June 1926, the San Carlos Hotel began gathering the construction materials to begin building their hotel addition, while the Bear brothers hastened to find other accommodations. Finally, the brothers purchased property in 1926 at Alkin and Gregory Street and made plans to move their dairy company to its final location. Their new address would be 141 East Gregory Street. To advertise their new plant and restaurant, they had a huge milk bottle constructed as their point of entry. There, they also branched out even further as they entered the production and serving of ice cream. Then in 1930, they sold their Robertsdale ice plant and moved their butter manufacturing operation to Pensacola. The restaurant quickly became an after-school hangout of the local teenagers, who flocked to the Milk Bottle restaurant, where the menu was tailored to their liking. As time went on, more and more items were added to the menu just for them, such as the banana split, and the super split, or the merry-go-round. Then there was the super colossal and the sportsman special. The more expensive ones were the atomic special, tall in the saddle, and the super duper for two. Luckily for the non-driving high schoolers, Pensacola High was only a couple blocks away, and Club's Junior High just a bit further on Palafox Street. Throughout their history, the Pensacola Dairy Bar only used glassware for all their sundaes and banana boats. They never used plastic or paper. Soon the city health officer, Dr. William Nobles, became involved in the production of ice cream. This was because the ingredients were legislated by the state's pure food laws. In an article of August 31, 1926, he stated that he had found some companies adding gelatins and other materials to their ice cream at the cost of butter fat, contrary to the law. He recommended our dairies be certified in the future, but the Bear Brothers' production was always listed as Grade A. In September 1927, the Bear Brothers announced their intention to expand their current cold storage and creamery facilities. This would allow them to establish creamery stations throughout Escambia County. They also wanted to expand their cold storage facility in Robertsdale. Currently, they were selling 500 gallons of milk daily, 2 tons of butter weekly, and 300 gallons of ice cream per day. They are paying to the local farmers 43 cents per pound for butter fat for sweet cream, and 40 cents per pound for sour cream to be delivered to their creamery stations. The expansion would also provide for eggs from Baldwin County, and a new ice plant and creamery in Alberta, where there was only a cream station currently. The brothers had expanded their input from dairy farmers as far north as Flomaton and eastward as far as Definiak Springs. Many of the farmers in Baldwin and Escambia County had also added dairy cows to their stock to add profits to their farms, with very little financial output. Currently, they were receiving cream from 167 dairy farmers in Robertsdale and 42 farmers in Pensacola. And their advertisements continued to highlight the word pasteurized, a process that at first was not trusted or accepted by Pensacola citizens. However, the process saved countless lives by killing the Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria, as well as preventing the milk to sour. Bennie and his wife Frances lived here, at 1704 East Savandes, which was built in 1908, for several decades before moving to 2521 Whaley Avenue. As of April 23, 1928, the Foley, Alabama Creamery was added to the Bear Brothers Company under the same policies exercised by all the other creameries under their management. To increase the input of their cream supply, the brothers, along with several other investors, created a program in November 1928 to assist local farmers in purchasing dairy cows. That year, the first rail cars of milch cows were to be purchased in Montgomery and shipped to Baldwin County. By 1929, Pensacola citizens were consuming 1,000 pounds of butter a day produced by the Pensacola Dairy Company. In fact, Pensacola was one of the few cities in Florida with modern butter-making equipment. They also established and maintained creamery receiving stations throughout Escambia and Santa Rosa County to expedite the process from farm to production. 1929 state law required that butter content must be 80% fat and 20% moisture and salt. It took a half day to produce a batch of butter, so the process began early in the morning, when the cream was tested, then dumped into a mammoth churn. This churn would turn at the rate of 75 revolutions per minute until the butter was hard enough to pack into containers. Buttermilk, on the other hand, was a byproduct of butter and sold separately. The Pensacola Dairy Company even won the silver medal in the 1929 Dixie Butter Contest. Of 1929, more farmers were given the opportunity to get into the lucrative milk production enterprise. Earl Goldsmith set up a sour cream collecting agency at his ice cream manufacturing plant on the Mobile and Montgomery Highway on the west side of Atmore. Goldsmith stated that once collected, he would be shipping it to the Pensacola Dairy Company on Wednesday and Saturday nights. In the meantime, he was building a creamery plant at a cost of $25,000, and when completed, he would need thousands of gallons of milk or fresh sweet cream imported daily. Bennie met with local farmers and advised them that just a few good cows could pay for their entire operating expenses of their whole farm per year. In December 1929, Claus Frisk moved to Pensacola to take over management of the creamery operations. Throughout contests held in Florida and Alabama, his products consistently scored higher than 93%. In 1937, the Pensacola Dairy Company opened a new wholesale and retail ice cream distributing plant in Robertsdale, Alabama. In July 1937, 14 out of 55 Escambia County dairies were not meeting Grade A requirements, according to Dairy Inspector Dr. A. J. McCreary of the County Health Department. On the list of those that complied were the Pensacola Dairy, plus the Lehman, Novak, Parazine, Voorhees, Wise, Olive, and Brentwood Dairy. In addition to their many other endeavors, the Bear brothers also maintained a demonstration farm in 1937 10 miles north of Pensacola. Although it's not verified, the Novak and Wise dairies may have been involved since they were located in the Ensley area, which would be approximately 10 miles north. On August 1, 1941, the Bear family patriarch Moses Aaron Bear passed away and was buried in a Jewish cemetery in Pensacola, Florida. His wife Rachel would follow 6 years later. By 1949, the Pensacola Dairy Company employed more than 30 workers, with a monthly payroll of $1,500. In 1950, one of the milk bottle's curb girls was Frances Misty Ruth Poyser, 1932 to 2022, who was crowned as Pensacola's first Miss Fiesta of Five Flags. Bennie would retire from the Pensacola Dairy Company in 1953. Afterwards, his brother became president, with Nathan's daughter Pearl becoming the secretary-treasurer, and her husband Leo Eskin, the manager. Nathan Bear would pass away on February 15, 1975, and his remains were sent to Tallahassee for cremation. Upon his death, his daughter and son-in-law Leo took over the ownership and management of the company. Benjamin Simon Bear would pass away on June 15, 1981, and was buried in the Jewish cemetery in Pensacola, Florida. His wife Frances Segal would follow him 4 years later. In 1976, it came time for the milk bottle to be demolished to make way for the new Interstate I-110 exit ramp. Like the San Carlos Hotel, the restaurant had served its time and was time to go. But there's no way of measuring the impact the Bear brothers had on the business community of Pensacola in general, and specifically the dairy enterprise. The innovations they initiated and the infrastructure they built through the modernization of the creamery industry was indescribable. But as with us all, time waits for no one, and the Bear brothers and their empire were no different. Soon what they had built quickly faded into the misty past, to the tune of the roaring bulldozers and the wrecking balls. The oversized milk bottle, for years a landmark on East Gregory Street, is no more. The path of progress and Interstate 110 finally reached the old Dairy Bar building a few weeks ago, and a bottle bit the dust. It will be a little unsettling for motorists accustomed to the big, white figure as they head for town from the beach. But I guess there's no sense crying over spilt milk.